At a Western horse fair, as everyone held their breath watching a wild Mustang scream and thrash in the arena, a 15-year-old girl in a wheelchair stunned the entire crowd. She hadn't come to perform. She came to rekindle a dream thought long lost. But no one expected that the moment the Mustang bowed its head to her would spark a journey that would shake all of Wyoming. August rolled in, pouring golden sunshine across the wide-open plains of Wyoming. On the rolling green hills surrounding the small town of Willow Bend, red and white flags fluttered at the gates of the annual horse fair, a sacred festival for the locals, cherished all year long. Lily Carter sat quietly in her faded blue wheelchair, hands resting gently on her lap, eyes tracking the proud steps of the horses being led along the grassy path. No one looking at her now could have guessed she once was one of the most promising young riders in the state. 3 years ago, a highway car crash stole her legs, and with them, her freedom, but not her love for horses. Behind her stood Rebecca, her mother, a retired nurse, holding a half-melted cup of lemonade. The breeze stirred her neatly pinned gray hair. She spoke softly. "Do you want to head over to the competition area? It's cooler over there." Lily shook her head lightly, her gaze never leaving the horses. "I just want to watch a little longer. They seem taller every year, stronger." Her voice was barely a whisper. Rebecca gave her daughter's shoulder a gentle squeeze. "We can leave whenever you say." Lily didn't respond. She was watching an Andalusian horse with sleek black mane being led toward the main arena. It reminded her of her old horse, Dusty, the one that died in the same crash that left her in this chair. The main arena was packed today. Bunting draped overhead, strings of lights hanging from wooden poles, and the constant jingle of saddles clinking together filled the air. Cheers erupted when a horse cleared a jump. Whistles followed every graceful dressage routine. Yet to Lily, it all felt like a sharp blade slicing through the dream she used to live in. "It's been 3 years and you still bring me here," Lily said quietly, eyes fixed on the arena. "I know what you're thinking, Mom, but I don't want to turn my back on horses, even if I can only watch from a distance." Rebecca nodded, throat tight. "I don't bring you here out of hope, sweetie. I bring you because I know you need it." Just then, the loudspeaker crackled to life. A deep, gravelly male voice echoed across the arena. "Ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves for something unlike anything you've ever seen. Even I, after 30 years in the game, can't believe what I'm about to witness." Lily turned, narrowing her eyes slightly. A man emerged from the corner of the arena, his old brown cowboy hat shadowing half his face. One shoulder draped in rawhide, worn boots, and a crooked smile that carried stories. That was Tate McGraw, a retired cowboy legend around these parts, once a star trainer of performance horses. In Willow Bend, his name carried weight like the wide prairie itself. Tate raised the mic. "Today, we're presenting not just a creature, but a storm. A mane-wielding, hoof-pounding, wild-hearted storm. He won't let anyone near, won't wear a bridle, doesn't care for treats. Folks, meet Blizzard." As the horse's name rang out, the entire arena fell still. The iron gate swung open. A silver-white Mustang burst into the ring, dragging 2 handlers behind him, both strained with all their might to keep from being yanked backward. Each step sent up clouds of dust like a prairie windstorm. His long mane whipped with every toss of his head. His eyes, dark and wary, scanned the stands. Blizzard didn't look like any horse Lily had ever seen. He was tall, rippling with muscle like wind pressed hard against hillside. But it was the look in his eyes that froze her. Not just wild, but wounded. A kind of hurt she knew too well. Tate stood firm in the center of the arena, voice booming. "We've tried 6 of the finest wranglers in the state. Not one could tame him. Today, we're opening it up. Anyone brave enough, crazy enough, sensitive enough to step into this ring. Give it a try. But fair warning, whatever happens, you're on your own." The crowd laughed nervously and stepped back. No one moved forward. Lily gripped the arms of her wheelchair. Her heart was thudding. Blizzard whipped his tail, spun in a circle, then stomped the ground. His gaze swept across the crowd, and in a fleeting moment, it met Lily's. That look, so full of sorrow, a soul trapped in its own skin. "Lily?" her mother asked softly. "What is it, honey?" Lily didn't answer. She straightened up, back rigid, eyes steady. She raised her hand. The entire arena fell silent. Tate looked down, his lips curling in a slow grin. "Well now, what do we have here?" Rebecca gripped her daughter's shoulders. Are you crazy? No, Lily, no way. But Lily didn't lower her hand. She looked straight at Tate. Let me try. The old cowboy stared at her for a long moment. Then he signaled to the event staff. The little lady in the wheelchair has more guts than all of us combined. Folks, give her a path. The crowd still couldn't believe what was happening. Lily took a deep breath. Her eyes never left Blizzard's. Beneath the wide Wyoming sky, a young girl rolled her wheels forward, heading straight for what no one else dared approach. Not because she thought she could conquer it, but because she just wanted to see it again. Lily Carter was gently wheeled onto the wide sand arena by a teen volunteer named Micah, a nervous-looking boy in a red cap. He leaned down and whispered, "You sure you want to do this?" Lily gave a faint smile, her eyes locked on the wild white Mustang stamping the ground and tossing his head like a storm. Tate McGraw furrowed his brow, turning to his old friend Ely, an aging horse handler who once worked long-haul Mustang training. I've never seen anything like this, Ely. Never. Eli just nodded. That girl's not like anyone I've ever met. The wheelchair left deep tracks in the soft arena sand. Lily pushed forward steadily, each wheel turn deliberate. Blizzard had stopped pacing, but his body was still taut like a drawn bow, snorting, ears pinned back in alarm. His lead rope hung loosely from a post in the center of the arena, strong enough to slow him, but not to stop him. The crowd was dead silent. The usual fairground noise had vanished into thin air as the little girl moved toward the notorious wild horse. "What is she doing?" someone whispered. "Call security," another voice shouted. Tate raised his hand, signaling for silence. Lily stopped 5 meters from Blizzard. She let go of her wheels and lifted her head. The wind tousled her hair and also tossed Blizzard's mane into the air. For a split second, the two stared directly at one another. It wasn't a look between human and animal, but between two beings who knew what it meant to lose everything. "Hey boy," Lily spoke, not loud, not timid. "I'm not here to tame you. I'm here because I know what that feels like." Blizzard raised his head slightly, ears twitching. A low growl rumbled from deep in his chest. He stomped, but didn't bolt. The wild rage in his eyes slowly shifted to confusion. Lily didn't move. She left the space between them open, for pain to speak for itself. "I've been bound too," she said, her voice as light as the wind, "by steel, by pity, by whispered words like 'poor girl.' I'm not asking you to kneel, just to stand with me." A minute passed like forever. Blizzard lowered his head. His ears drooped, his eyelids blinked slowly. He took one step forward, just one, and stopped, breathing softly. Lily extended her hand, not too fast, not too slow. Her fingers touched the cool hair of his muzzle. Blizzard didn't flinch. "Good boy," Lily whispered. The crowd held their breath. Someone dropped their drink. An old woman covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Up in the booth, Tate shook his head, nearly laughing. "Lord Almighty," he muttered. "I've seen full-grown men kicked clean across this ring. And now, a little girl's petting him like he's a kitten." Then, an urgent scream pierced the stillness. A small boy, maybe 4 years old, had slipped from his mother's grasp and sprinted it into the arena, waving a balloon stick. Before anyone could react, he was just feet away from Blizzard. "Stop!" Lily shouted. Not panicked, but firm. Blizzard jolted, spun around. His hooves tore into the sand, one leg raised, ready to strike. Lily cried out again. "Blizzard, no, look at me!" She raised her arm, eyes wide. Blizzard froze. He turned, to her, not the child. And then something unthinkable happened. He walked toward the boy. The crowd erupted, but Blizzard didn't stomp, didn't attack. He moved slowly, lowering his head, gently nudging the child's shoulder as if guiding him back. The boy's mother rushed in, tears streaking her cheeks. "Oh my God, thank you, thank you." Blizzard stood still. Lily whispered, "I knew you weren't a monster." Applause erupted like thunder. Someone blew a whistle. Someone else broke into tears. Tate stepped up to the mic, voice raspy. "Folks, I've seen hundreds of Mustangs, but this is the first time I've seen one choose gentleness over fear. No one made him do it, except her." Eli wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "That girl, she's not saving the horse, she's saving herself." Rebecca stood frozen behind the fence. Her heart pounded wildly, but she couldn't deny it. Her daughter's eyes had lit up for the first time in 3 years. As the crowd began to drift away, Lily remained, seated beside Blizzard. Blizzard dipped his head, letting her stroke his mane once more. No one dared step in. No one wanted to break that moment. Tate approached and placed a hand on Lily's shoulder. "Kid, you didn't just surprise me. You made me believe in miracles again." Lily smiled. "It's not a miracle, Mr. Tate. It's pain. Finally being heard." Tate nodded. "Well then, how about staying a little longer to listen back?" Lily looked up, eyes bright. "You mean stay with him, under my watch, not for training, just to be friends?" Lily turned to Blizzard. "Deal," she said. "But I'm not here to teach him. I'm here to learn." Ever since that unforgettable afternoon, Lily Carter had practically made herself part of S7, the temporary home of Blizzard, now under the close supervision of Tate McGraw. In the golden wash of late afternoon sun, the soft crunch of wheelchair wheels rolled over the gravel paths between old wooden stables, blending with distant neighs echoing from the far end of the fairgrounds. Rebecca, as always, never let Lily out of her sight for more than 10 minutes. She often stood in the middle courtyard, arms folded tight, her face showing open unease. She didn't trust Blizzard. She trusted Tate even less. And she absolutely didn't trust the wild, unpredictable world her daughter was now re-entering after 3 careful years of trying to keep her safe. But Lily was different. Though her shoulders still ached and her hands had calluses from pushing the wheelchair, she insisted on doing everything herself. Feeding Blizzard, refilling water, cleaning up, and especially standing beside him when the sun dipped low behind the hills. Blizzard wasn't easy. He still snorted at strangers, jerked his head when anyone moved too fast. But with Lily, he was starting to change, just a little. As if somewhere inside he recognized her pain. And she recognized his. One late evening, when most of the fair had closed down, Lily begged Tate to let her stay a little longer. Tate grumbled like a stubborn old man but nodded and called over Eli to keep watch. Eli was a wiry man with a thick beard and a gravelly voice. He'd once worked at a training ranch in Idaho before quitting in the middle of a lawsuit scandal. Since then, he'd drifted through fairs and barns all across the West until finally landing in Willow Bend. "Because I saw a Mustang that looked like the first one I ever saved." That night, in the dim glow of lantern light, Lily sat in silence watching Blizzard, who was frozen at the far end of the stall. His gaze was fixed on a dark corner where old training equipment had been stashed: chains, short whips, a wooden mallet, feed sacks. "He always stares over there," Lily murmured. Eli nodded. "Used to be a storage shed back when the fair still hired outside trainers. Those guys weren't the good kind." "Who exactly?" Lily asked, turning to him. Eli went quiet for a long moment. "A man named Frank Delaney got kicked out of at least 3 training camps for using tranquilizers and steel rods to force horses into performing." Tate stepped in just as that sentence ended, his face darkening. "I warned them, but back then, the organizers only cared about the show, not about the scars on a horse." Lily gripped the armrest of her chair. "Do you have any records?" Tate sighed. "No paperwork, but I know the old storage rooms. If you've got the guts, kid, we can go see what he left behind." The 3 of them, each carrying a flashlight, quietly circled around the back of the main barn. Tate pushed Lily's wheelchair while Eli followed, his eyes scanning the shadows like he expected someone to be watching. They stopped outside a small wooden shed, its door long padlocked shut. Tate fumbled with a ring of old keys, rattled the lock, and finally pushed the creaking door open. Dust swirled in the stale air, but the sour scent of chemicals and rust still lingered. Lily swallowed hard. In the far corner sat a rusted steel cabinet. Eli kicked it open. Inside were old tools, a steel whip with barbed hooks, heavy chains, and a livestock-grade tranquilizer kit. Lily stared at the whip, her palms dampening with sweat. "Oh my God," she whispered. Then, a sound. All 3 froze. Eli clicked off his flashlight. They held their breath. A thin, hunched figure passed quickly outside the doorway, sharp eyes, like blades. "It's him," Tate hissed. "Frank Delaney." "We need to call the police," Eli said. "Not yet," Tate replied. "We've got no proof of what he's done, but at least now we know he's still lurking around." Back at the stall, Lily found Blizzard trembling, sweat tracing down his spine. He'd felt something. She wheeled closer, gently placing a hand along his neck. "I see it in your eyes, Blizzard," she whispered. "That fear, it's the same as the nightmares I used to have every night after the crash. The way people looked at me, like I was broken. Blizzard lifted his head, his muzzle brushing gently against her forehead. Rebecca arrived just then, gripping Lily's shoulders. "Lily, please," she begged. "Stop this. You don't have to do this to yourself." Lily looked up at her mother, eyes glistening, but unshaken. "Mom, there was a time I thought I died. I didn't want to wake up. But Blizzard, he makes me feel like I'm alive again." Rebecca's voice cracked. "You could get hurt, you know that." "So could he," Lily replied, turning back to the Mustang. "He was hurt before I ever was." Tate stepped forward. "Rebecca, I'll take responsibility. I'm not throwing her into danger. But I know when a kid finds the one thing that brings her heart back to life." Rebecca stood silent. She knew, in that moment, nothing would stop Lily now. The morning sun over Willow Bend cast long slanted beams across the white tents, glowing on Lily Carter's tense face as she sat in her wheelchair, gripping the armrests, eyes locked on the central arena. The air felt heavier than usual, as if something big was coming, something everyone could feel, but no one dared speak aloud. Tate McGraw stood beside her, wearing the same battered cowboy hat that had followed him through 2 decades of dusty western roads. His face was weathered by sun and time, but his eyes still gleamed like steel, especially now, watching 3 members of the fair committee striding toward them from the main pavilion, their steps brisk, their faces tight. "Lily," said the woman in front, an older lady named Bonnie Crowder, "we need to speak with you. Privately." Rebecca stepped in, standing firm. "I'm her mother. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here." Bonnie exchanged glances with the man beside her, one a lawyer, the other a veterinary supervisor. She cleared her throat. "We've received a formal complaint regarding the safety risk posed by the Mustang, Blizzard. That horse was previously flagged for investigation after reported abuse and aggression. With the recent incident involving Frank Delaney, even without criminal charges, we are obligated to reevaluate whether that horse can remain on fairgrounds." Rebecca's voice turned cold. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "We intend to transfer Blizzard to the State Veterinary Holding Facility for psychological and behavioral evaluation, pending further decision." "No." Lily's voice broke out, shaky but clear. "You can't do that." Bonnie's tone sharpened. "You have to understand this is about public safety." "Whose safety?" Lily cut in. "A public that's afraid of a horse just because he was tortured by people like you?" The air froze. Passers-by began to slow and listen. From across the grounds, Eli gave Tate a small nod. Tate stepped forward, his voice like thunder. "I'm the one who vouched for this girl. I saw everything that happened that night. Blizzard is not the problem. Frank Delaney is the problem." Bonnie was clearly losing patience. "We can't allow personal feelings to override regulatory protocol. This is a licensed event. We have insurance obligations." Lily turned to Tate. "Can you say it? All of it?" Tate nodded, then faced the crowd now gathering. "Frank Delaney is an abusive trainer, kicked out of at least 3 ranches. We found torture devices, tranquilizers, and the remnants of what he left behind in the old equipment shed. And last night, he returned, lurking like the predator he's always been." Bonnie's face flushed. "There's no legal proof. No one caught him doing anything." "No," a deep male voice called out. Eli stepped forward. "I saw him. I worked with him in Idaho. I watched him break horses with drugs and steel rods. That's why I quit. And last night, I saw him walk out of that shed with the same spiked whip I've had nightmares about for years." The crowd rippled with gasps. Some nodded. Others muttered, "She was right." Bonnie scrambled for footing. "Even if that's true, we still can't allow a minor under 16 to ride an untrained Mustang. This is not the place for emotional experiments." Suddenly, a loud noise cracked from behind. Everyone turned. Blizzard. The white Mustang had broken free from his pen and was trotting directly into the plaza. No one moved fast enough to stop him. He made a beeline for Lily. Panic erupted. But just a few feet away, Blizzard slowed, lowered his head, and walked gently to Lily's side. He touched her shoulder with his muzzle. Silence. Tate leaned to Eli, whispering, "Sweet mercy, he just surrendered. Not to us, to her." Lily stroked Blizzard's nose. "He doesn't need to perform for anyone. We understand each other." The crowd was frozen in awe. Then someone stepped forward, a woman in a black shirt with sharp eyes and an authoritative presence. It was Madison Roy, a representative from the Wyoming Equestrian Alliance. She pushed through the crowd and stopped in front of Lily. I oversee semi-professional riding events across this state, she said, and I just witnessed one of the most powerful horse-human connections I've ever seen. Lily looked up. Madison met her gaze. Tomorrow, noon, at the performance arena, you and your Mustang will have your chance. Not to prove anything, just to show everyone what truth looks like. The crowd murmured, then clapped. More joined in, and soon the entire square was shaking with applause. Rebecca stood frozen, then stepped forward, taking Lily's hand. You sure about this? She asked softly. Lily smiled. I'm not here to put on a show, I just want to dance. With him. Blizzard let out a soft whinny, as if in agreement. And from that moment on, the battle was no longer about a misunderstood horse. It became a fight for faith, that unseen force which, when believed in, could change an entire community. The early morning sky over Willow Bend was a clear sheet of soft blue, stretched out like calm before a storm of emotion. Today, Lily Carter would face not just the skeptical stares and whispered doubts, but her own fear. The arena had been freshly covered in new sand, the fences reinforced, the wooden bleachers wiped spotless. The fair organizers didn't want a single thing to go wrong, not with Lily's safety, and definitely not with the event's reputation. Tate McGraw double-checked every safety latch on Lily's wheelchair, even though she had insisted at least 10 times that she didn't need any accessory restraints for a freeform performance. This kid's as stubborn as a wild bronc, he muttered, but his hands still worked with the care of a craftsman, tightening sacred knots. Lily smiled, adjusting her crisp white shirt and the red bandana tied at her neck. Her hair was braided on both sides, the ends swaying gently whenever a breeze passed by. Rebecca stood silently nearby, clutching a now cold cup of coffee. She didn't try to stop her daughter anymore. Instead, she placed a steady hand on Lily's shoulder just before she rolled out from the porch. If something happens... Mom, Lily cut in, her voice low but firm. This isn't a contest, it's an answer. Blizzard was being led out from his stall, his white coat gleaming under the morning sun. Every step he took was a statement of freedom. But unlike that first day, today he wasn't stomping or tossing his head. He looked at Lily, exhaled softly, and dipped his head. Together, they entered the arena to a wave of cheering from the stands. Many who had doubted them now watched with admiration. Children held handmade signs with drawings of horses and wheelchairs scrawled with heartfelt slogans. Dance, Lily, dance. Madison Roy stepped into the ring holding a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, today is not just a performance. It's a story, a journey, a trial, and perhaps a small miracle. Music swelled across the loudspeakers, a gentle instrumental piece that blended country strings with classical notes. No bridle, no whip, just Lily, still and composed in her wheelchair. And Blizzard, free as wind. The performance began with simple flowing movements. Blizzard circled Lily gracefully, then paused behind her and lowered his head, waiting. Lily lifted her hand, no word spoken, and the horse moved in response. He turned, nodded, weaved through mock obstacles made to resemble desert brush and wooden posts. It was smooth, mesmerizing. No one spoke. The arena held its breath. Then came the climax, the ring of fire. It was a metal arch lined with flickering ropes of light meant to simulate flame, mimicking the psychological fear trap often used on Mustangs in old capture camps. Blizzard stopped cold. 1 second. 2. His eyes widened. Lily didn't force him. She didn't plead. She placed a hand over her heart, then extended it outward. You got this, partner, she whispered into the mic. Blizzard lifted his head. He looked at her, not out of obedience, but trust. Then, he walked through the ring. The crowd exploded. Children jumped. Adults clapped until their hands ached. But before the applause could settle, a bunch of balloons suddenly dropped from the left bleachers, released by a group of kids. The popping noises cracked like whip snaps across the arena. Blizzard reared up, hooves flailing in the air. The wind howled. Lily leaned back to avoid tipping, but didn't flinch. She raised her hand, eyes locked on him. Blizzard, it's okay. I'm still here. She said it like a vow, like an anchor thrown into a sea of panic. Blizzard dropped his hooves. Trembling, he took slow steps forward. And then, under the stunned gaze of thousands, he bent his knees and knelt before Lily, resting his head in her lap. No one made a sound. Then, one clap, another, and then hundreds, thousands. A standing ovation. Madison Roy covered her mouth, eyes glassy. Tate turned away, dabbing his eyes with an old bandana. Lily whispered so only Blizzard could hear, "We're not broken. We're just not done yet." No one cared who won or lost anymore, because in that moment, a girl in a wheelchair and a wild horse had passed through something fiercer than fire. Prejudice. Evening light in Willow Bend always had a quiet gold to it. The sun slanted through the leftover bleachers from the day before, where people still whispered about the moment Blizzard bowed before Lily. Some called it a miracle. Others insisted it was training behind the scenes. But to Lily, it was simple trust. She sat in the old tack room, surrounded by bales of hay and coiled ropes. Beside her, Blizzard quietly chewed, his breath calm. In her hand was the red bandana, now frayed. She kept rubbing between her fingers like a comfort ritual. Local news channels kept replaying her performance, with headlines reading, "The Girl in the Wheelchair and the Wild Horse, the Story That Moved Wyoming." A soft knock at the door. Madison Roy stepped inside, as composed as ever, holding a file folder. "Lily," she said, voice steady, but there was something different in her eyes. "Are you ready for another chance?" Lily looked up, her eyes lighting like someone waking from a dream. "You've been officially nominated by the panel. You'll represent Willow Bend at the state finals in Cheyenne." Blizzard stopped chewing. The whole room seemed to hold its breath. Lily pressed her lips together. She could hear her heart pounding. Madison continued. "Some will support you, others won't. They'll call it a media stunt. But the real question is, do you want to keep going?" From outside the door, Rebecca had heard everything. She stepped in, her hands tight at her sides, voice trembling. "Sweetheart, I'm not here to stop you. But do you know what might happen if you fall? If Blizzard panics in front of a full stadium?" Lily stood, not with her legs, but with her voice. "Mom, this isn't about winning a ribbon. It's about having the right to stand in the light, even if I can't stand at all." Rebecca lowered her head. She knew she had lost the battle, but it was the sweetest loss she'd ever known. In the days that followed, the practice arena behind the fairgrounds became Lily's sanctuary. Eli, the scruffy horse whisperer, worked with her alongside Tate and Madison in shifts. Tate choreographed a piece that blended liberty riding with expressive movement. He named it the Silent Symphony. Because between this girl and her horse, no words were ever needed. At first, Blizzard was slow. Movements like spinning, backing up, and kneeling were tough, but Lily never forced him. Each time he hesitated, she'd whisper, "We'll try again tomorrow, okay?" One night, under the soft yellow lights strung along the barn rafters, Blizzard walked up to Lily and lowered his head. She reached up to stroke his neck, smiling. "Partner," she said, "we don't need to be perfect. We just need to be honest." Word of Lily began to spread across the western states. Local news ran specials. Bloggers shared her story. But so did the critics. The girl in the wheelchair doesn't belong in competition. This isn't about sport, it's a sympathy show. Lily read every one, not to get upset, but to remind herself why she was doing this. One rainy afternoon, as she and Tate stood under the eaves, watching the soaked practice ring, she asked, "What did you think the day I got invited to compete?" Tate smirked. "I thought, maybe I'm finally old enough to cry over a horse." They both laughed. "Do you think I'll win?" she asked back. Tate shrugged. "I don't care if you win, but I want people to see the truth, that a wheelchair didn't hold you back. And Blizzard, he's not a problem to be managed. He's a piece of freedom." The wind blew through, rattling the wind chimes near the barn. The kind of night that felt like a door creaking open, into a world where pain wasn't hidden but honored as part of the journey. The night before they left for Cheyenne, Lily sat alone, writing a letter to herself 3 years ago. To the girl who fell off a horse and woke up without legs. "Dear Lily, I know you're scared. I know you think it's over, but listen, nothing is over. We're just getting started. You'll ride again. You won't be alone. And when the lights hit you, you won't see a wheelchair anymore. You'll see something bigger." She folded the letter, tucked it into her shirt pocket. Blizzard lay sleeping in the next stall. He looked like a storm finally resting. No longer wild, no longer wounded, just whole. The next morning, the whole team hit the road. Willow Bend sent them off with cheers and pats on the back. Lily looked out the rear window at the land that had watched her grow up, break down, and now rise again, not on 2 legs, but with a heart that would not surrender. The Cheyenne State Fair was the biggest event of the year in central Wyoming. People poured in from every corner of the state, trucks piled high with hay bales and saddles lining the roads. The scent of roasted corn, worn leather, and country music filled the air. There was nothing like it anywhere else in America. Lily sat in her wheelchair, gazing through the small window in the competitor tent. Outside, workers were setting up flags, hammering posts into the ground. Final touches for the Liberty Performance Division, the event she and Blizzard had trained for. Around her neck hung a silver leather tag, stamped with a single word: breathe. Tate had handed it to her that morning. "So you remember," he said, "every great thing starts with a calm breath." Rebecca gently adjusted Lily's collar. Though her eyes were still wet and worried, for the first time in 3 years, she didn't say no. "You sure about this, Lily?" she asked. "I've never been more sure." Eli stepped in with the competition score sheet. "The first 2 acts are strong. A team from Casper did a paso doble with twin Andalusians. Made my spine tingle." Lily smiled. "We're not here to outdo anyone. We're here to tell a story." When the loudspeakers called her name, a familiar melody filled the air: Wild Horses. The crowd hushed. A girl in a wheelchair and a wild Mustang stepped onto the arena floor, and the entire stadium seemed to pause. Blizzard walked slowly. No rope, no commands, just a connection. Lily gave a single nod. She lifted her hand. The Mustang circled her in elegant arcs, graceful like a weightless waltz. Every move was a breath. Every shift in his body, a flash of memory, the wild years, the wounds, the moments they both got back up when everything said stay down. Blizzard reared onto his hind legs, turned in a slow circle, almost like a dance. The whole stadium watched in reverent silence. Then came the ending. Lily raised both hands. Blizzard spun once, then gently lay down before her, his head resting on her legs. Not in submission, but in trust. The audience was still. And then, like a tide, the cheers came rushing in. People leapt to their feet. Some screamed, "That's real horsemanship." Others just cried. From the judges' stand, Madison Roy stood motionless, her scoring sheet in hand, but her eyes never left Lily. She didn't need numbers. She had seen enough. In the final rankings, Lily didn't take first place. She came in 4th. But nobody cared. Reporters swarmed her more than the actual winner. Children ran up for autographs. Someone even wrote a letter to Willow Bend that simply said, "Because of Lily, I stood up again after my accident." A month later, Lily and Rebecca opened Willow Haven, a horse-assisted therapy ranch for children with special needs. Eli became head trainer. Tate taught gentle horsemanship classes. Blizzard had his own paddock near the training ring, but he preferred to wander the grounds, letting little girls stroke his mane like he was some old friend who had always been there. At the grand opening, Lily sat in the middle of the arena, watching children laugh, wheelchairs spinning through sand, tiny hands gripping reins for the first time. A reporter asked, "If you had the chance to go back, would you compete again?" Lily brushed her wind-tangled hair behind her ear. "I already did," she answered. "And I won, with a medal no one can see." The wind picked up, flapping the small flag at the gate of Willow Haven. Emblazoned on it in bold letters, "Freedom isn't about running, it's about choosing to rise." If you believe that courage isn't in your legs, but in a heart that never quits, leave a comment with 1 to stand with Lily and Blizzard. Or drop a 0 if you've ever had a dream that once felt out of reach. Don't forget to subscribe to True Animal Stories, because the next tale might just change the way you see the world. We'll be here to tell you stories of love, of healing, and of the animals who transformed a life forever.